Victoria Caldwell ripped the check in half and threw the pieces directly at the stranger's face. "Get this man off my property. Now?" $90 million worth of aircraft sat dead on the runway. 18 hours until the most important meeting of her life, and the only person who could save her was a 60-year-old man she had just publicly humiliated in front of her entire team. But here is what Victoria did not know. What nobody in that hangar knew. The man standing in front of her in a faded hoodie and worn jeans, the man she had just called a nobody, was Keanu Reeves, one of the most famous actors on the planet, worth $400 million. And he was about to teach a billionaire the most expensive lesson of her life. The phone rang at 6:47 in the morning. Keanu Reeves was already awake. He had been awake since 5:30, same as every other day for the past 3 years, standing in his small kitchen in Newark, making a turkey sandwich for his daughter Lily. No crust, apple slices on the side, a juice box tucked in the corner, and a note. He always wrote a note. Today the note said, "You are braver than you believe. Love, Daddy." He folded it carefully and slipped it into her lunchbox, right where she would find it at noon. Note number 847. One for every school day since she came to live with him. Since he made the promise that changed his life forever. The world knew Keanu Reeves as a movie star, action hero, the man who could fight on top of a speeding train and make 100 million people hold their breath. But the world did not know this version of him. The version standing barefoot on cold kitchen tiles at dawn, carefully cutting the crust off a sandwich for an 8-year-old girl who was not his by blood, but was his by everything that mattered. Lily Mitchell was his daughter by a vow spoken between 2 hands in a military hospital in Germany, and by another vow whispered between trembling fingers in a cancer ward in Newark. Her father, Tommy Mitchell, had been Keanu's best friend since they were both 7 years old, running wild through the streets of East Baltimore. Tommy's grandfather, Earl Mitchell, ran a garage on the corner of Pratt and Collington, a small cinder block building with oil-stained floors and a hand-painted sign that read, "Mitchell and Sons, we fix what is broken." Earl taught both boys everything. How to take apart an engine and put it back together blindfolded. How to listen for the sound a machine makes when something is wrong. How to feel a vibration that does not belong. "Machines talk," Earl used to say, his thick hands guiding their small ones across engine blocks, still warm from running. "They are always talking, always telling you what is wrong, what they need, what is hurting them. Most people are too busy running their mouths to hear. But if you get quiet enough, if you listen hard enough, the machine will tell you everything." Tommy followed his grandfather's path into machines, but took it further. Joined the Air Force. Became one of the finest aviation mechanics the military had ever seen. Served 3 deployments in Afghanistan. Fixed engines in the desert, in the mountains, in the middle of the night with nothing but a flashlight and instinct. Tommy could fix anything with wings. Keanu took a different road. Hollywood found him, or he found it, and the rest became history. But he never lost his hands. Never lost the feel for metal and oil and the quiet language of engines. Between films, he built motorcycles. Founded a custom motorcycle company. Spent hours in his workshop, not because he needed to, but because it was the only place where the noise of fame went quiet and he could hear himself think. Tommy used to visit on leave, and they would work side by side in Keanu's garage, just like they had in Earl's shop as boys. Tommy taught Keanu everything new he had learned. Gulfstream fuel systems, Bombardier avionics, military helicopter hydraulics. And Keanu absorbed it all with the same intensity he brought to learning fight choreography, except this was real. This was the language his best friend spoke, and Keanu wanted to be fluent in it. When Keanu decided to get his private pilot's license, Tommy trained him on the weekends. When Keanu wanted to understand jet engines for an action film, Tommy flew out to Los Angeles and spent 3 weeks in a hangar with him. teaching him every system until Keanu could strip and rebuild a turbine in his sleep. Keanu eventually earned certifications on Gulfstream, Bombardier, and Cessna, not because he needed them, because Tommy's world mattered to him, and learning it was a way of loving his friend. Then Tommy deployed one last time, a routine mission that was supposed to last 6 weeks. It lasted 4 days. An ambush outside Kabul, an IED on a road that had been cleared twice. Tommy threw himself over a 19-year-old private named Collins and absorbed the blast with his own body. Collins survived. Tommy did not. He was 34 years old. Lily was 2. Keanu stood at the funeral in a dark suit, holding Lily in one arm and Grace's hand in the other, and he made his first promise. I will be here. For both of you. Whatever you need. For as long as you need it. He kept that promise for 3 years. Sunday dinners. Birthday parties. School pickups when Grace had doctor appointments. She said were routine, but were not. He turned down 3 major film roles because the shooting schedules conflicted with being present. His agent called him crazy. Keanu called it keeping his word. Then the phone call that carved a hole in his chest that never fully healed. Grace, sitting in a hospital bed that seemed to swallow her whole, tubes running from her arms like vines trying to pull her underground. Breast cancer. Stage 4. Metastasized to the bones. She had 6 months. She lasted 4. On the last night, Grace held Keanu's hand with fingers that felt like paper. Her voice was barely a whisper, but her eyes burned with a fire that cancer could not touch. You are the only person in this world I trust with her. Promise me, Keanu. Grace, nothing is going to happen. Promise me. Look at me and promise. He looked at her. He promised. 3 weeks later, she was gone. Keanu adopted Lily the following month. He sold his house in Los Angeles, moved to a quiet neighborhood in Newark where nobody cared about movie stars, and became a father. Not by birth, not by plan, by a promise made between 2 hands in a hospital room where the air smelled like disinfectant and goodbye. He stepped away from Hollywood. Not forever, but far enough to disappear from the tabloids. He grew a thick beard, let his hair go wild, wore the same old hoodies and worn jeans every day. He drove a rusted 2009 Ford F-150 that Tommy had left behind because getting rid of it felt like getting rid of the last piece of his friend. People in his neighborhood knew him as the quiet guy who walked his daughter to school. Nobody recognized him. That was the point. He could have hired nannies, could have enrolled Lily in the most exclusive school in Manhattan, could have bought a penthouse with a view of Central Park and surrounded her with every luxury a child could imagine. But Keanu knew something about luxury that most people did not. It was a beautiful cage. He had lived inside it for decades, and it had not saved him from loneliness, from loss, from lying awake at 3 in the morning wondering if anyone would notice if he simply disappeared. Tommy had shown him another way. Tommy, who had lived in a 1,200-square-foot house with a leaky faucet and a backyard just big enough for a barbecue, had been the happiest man Keanu had ever known. Richness is not what you have. Tommy used to say, flipping burgers while Lily chased fireflies. Richness is who shows up when you call. So Keanu chose small, chose real, chose a life where the woman next door brought over pancakes without being asked, where the mailman knew his name, where Lily could ride her bike to the corner store and feel the ground beneath her tires instead of marble beneath her shoes. The phone kept ringing. Keanu wiped his hands on a dish towel and checked the caller ID. Derek Coleman, Tommy's Air Force buddy, the man who had served beside Tommy through 3 deployments and who now worked private aviation at Teterboro Airport. After Tommy died, Derek and Keanu had become close, welded together by the shape of the man they had both lost. Keanu answered on the 4th ring. Derek, it is not even 7. Someone better be dying. Brother, I need you. Something in Derek's voice made Keanu stop moving. Not panic exactly, but close. What is wrong? You know that G700 I told you about. The one belonging to that tech CEO, Victoria Caldwell. The woman who owns half of Silicon Valley. That is the one. Her jet will not start. Been dead for 6 hours. She has got some merger meeting in London tomorrow, worth $4 billion. And if she does not get there, the whole deal falls apart. Keanu poured himself coffee with one hand. The coffee was old. He had made it at 5. Did not matter. Derek, she has got a maintenance team. She has got money to fly in whoever she wants. Why are you calling me? Because I already flew in whoever she wants. Derek's voice cracked slightly. 3 engineers from MIT, 2 from Boeing, 1 guy who literally designed the G700 avionics system. None of them can figure it out. The jet just sits there, dead, like something is holding it down. Keanu took a sip of coffee. Cold and bitter, just like this conversation. And she is losing her mind. Derek continued. She has fired 2 people already this morning. The whole hangar is a war zone. I have never seen anything like it. Sounds like her problem. I told her I knew someone. Keanu closed his eyes. Someone who could fix anything. Someone Tommy trained himself. You should not have done that. I know, but I did. And now I am asking you, as a friend, as a brother who loved Tommy the same way you did, please just come look at it. Keanu looked at the clock on the microwave. 6:52. Lily's school bus came at 7:45. Mrs. Patricia Dawson next door could watch her for the day. But today was Saturday. He had promised Lily the park. Derek, I cannot just... If you cannot fix it, fine, walk away. But at least try. That is all I am asking. 1 look, 1 hour, please. Keanu heard footsteps upstairs. Lily was waking up. He thought about the note in her lunchbox. Thought about the tuition payment due next month for her school. Not because he could not afford it. He could buy the school. But he lived on a budget he set for himself. A normal life. A real life. Because raising Lily in a bubble of wealth was not what Tommy would have wanted. He thought about Tommy. The man who never said no when a friend needed help. The man who threw himself on a bomb for a kid he barely knew. I will be there in 2 hours. Thank you, brother. I owe you. Yeah, you do. He hung up. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway. 8 years old, still in her pajamas, purple ones with little stars. Her hair was a tangle of light brown waves sticking up in all directions. She had her mother's eyes, that same soft hazel that could see right through you, and her father's stubborn chin. Tommy's chin, the chin that got both of them into trouble more often than not. Who was that, Daddy? Keanu knelt down to her level. He always did that, never talked down to her. His grandmother had taught him that. Children deserve eye contact. Children deserve respect. That was Uncle Derek, baby girl. He needs Daddy's help with something at work. Lily's face fell. Not dramatically. She was not a dramatic kid. But the disappointment was there, plain as day. But today is Saturday. You promised we would go to the park. He knew what broken promises meant to this child. She had already lost everyone who had ever promised to stay. I know, Lily. I know I promised. And I am sorry. But sometimes grown-ups have to help their friends when they are in trouble. Even when we do not want to. He smoothed down her wild hair. You understand that, right? Lily's lower lip trembled just slightly. Will you be home for dinner? I will do everything in my power to be home for dinner. And if I am late, I will bring you ice cream. Deal. A small smile cracked through. Chocolate? Is there any other kind? She giggled. Deal. He kissed her forehead, held her for an extra second, then called Mrs. Dawson, who answered on the second ring and already had pancakes ready. 20 minutes later, Keanu was in Tommy's old Ford F-150 heading north on the Garden State Parkway. The transmission made that grinding sound as he shifted into third. He had never fixed it. Fixing it felt like erasing Tommy's fingerprints. He thought about his grandmother, Ella Mae Reeves, who had raised him after his parents died in a car crash when he was 7. She had lived in a little house in East Baltimore, 3 blocks from Earl Mitchell's garage. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a garden out back where she grew tomatoes and collard greens and hope. She had worked as a seamstress until she was 82. Made wedding dresses, mostly. Beautiful ones. There are two kinds of people in this world, she used to tell him. Wall builders and bridge builders. The wall builders think they are safe, but they end up trapped inside their own fortress, alone. The bridge builders are scared too, Keanu. But they build anyway, because they know the only way through fear is connection. The security guard at Teterboro's private terminal looked at Keanu's truck like it was a cockroach that had crawled into a five-star restaurant. The F-150 was old, dented, rust creeping along the fenders. The guard approached slowly. "Can I help you?" Keanu Reeves. "I am here to see Derek Coleman about the Caldwell aircraft." The guard did not react to the name. He saw a 60-year-old man with a thick, unkempt beard, long, messy hair, a faded black hoodie, and worn jeans. He saw the truck. He checked his clipboard. "You are the specialist." "That is what they tell me." The guard made a call, glanced at the truck again with obvious disbelief, then handed over a visitor badge. Hangar 7. Hangar 7 was blazing with industrial lights, and inside sat the most beautiful aircraft Keanu had ever seen. The Gulfstream G700, $90 million of aerospace engineering. Completely, utterly dead, Keanu parked the truck between a Bentley and a Tesla. He grabbed his toolbox from the back seat. It was the same toolbox that had belonged to Earl Mitchell, passed down to Tommy, and passed down to Keanu the day of Tommy's funeral. Held together with duct tape, dented and scratched and worn down to bare metal in places. But every tool inside was perfect. Clean, sharp, ready. The tension inside the hangar hung in the air like humidity before a storm. At least 15 people clustered in groups, radiating stress. Engineers hunched over laptops. Mechanics stood around looking helpless. And in the center of it all stood Victoria Caldwell. She was 5'3" at most, but she commanded that hangar like she was 7 feet tall. Dark blonde hair pulled back severely from her face. A designer suit that cost more than most people's cars. Eyes the color of winter steel. Right now, those eyes were locked onto a middle-aged man wearing a Boeing polo shirt. William Crawford, according to his badge. The man was sweating. 6 hours, Victoria was saying. Her voice was like ice cracking. 6 hours, and you are telling me you still do not know what is wrong. Ms. Caldwell, the diagnostic systems are showing no errors. The engines are structurally sound. On paper, this aircraft should start. But it does not start. Does it? No, ma'am. So either the paper is lying or you are. She stepped closer. Crawford flinched. Do you know what this meeting is worth, Mr. Crawford? $4 billion. Do you know what my company is worth? $11 billion. Do you know what your excuses are worth? She leaned in close enough to whisper. Nothing. Your excuses are worth nothing to me. Crawford looked like he wanted to disappear into the concrete floor. That was when Victoria turned on another engineer. Younger, wearing an MIT sweatshirt. He could not have been more than 25. And you. You designed half the avionics in this aircraft, according to your resume. So tell me, genius, why is your design sitting dead on my runway? The young man's hands trembled. His voice came out cracked. Caldwell, the avionics are functioning perfectly. The problem is not in the electronics. It is somewhere in the mechanical. Somewhere. Victoria spat the word like it tasted rotten. Somewhere is not an answer. Somewhere is what children say when they lose their toys. I did not pay for somewhere. I paid for certainty. Derek appeared at Keanu's side. Exhausted, dark circles, rumpled uniform. He had been here all night. You made it? Thank God. Derek? What did you get me into? I know. Just trust me. Victoria suddenly stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes swept across the hangar and landed directly on Keanu. She started walking toward him. She stopped 3 feet away. Her eyes moved down his body. The worn hoodie, the old jeans, the boots, the toolbox wrapped in tape. She did not recognize him. She saw exactly what she expected to see. A nobody? Who are you? Keanu Reeves, ma'am. I am here to look at your aircraft. The name rolled past her without registering. She was too consumed by her crisis, too certain of her assumptions, too busy looking at his clothes to look at his face. She heard Reeves and saw mechanic, and her brain filled in the rest. And who exactly sent you? Derek stepped forward. I did, Miss Caldwell. He is the best I have ever seen. He was trained by the finest aviation mechanic the Air Force ever produced. He is certified on Gulfstream, Bombardier, Cessna. He can fix anything. Certified. Victoria laughed. No humor in it. Everyone in this hangar is certified. I have PhDs standing right here, and none of them can start my airplane. She stepped into Keanu's space. So tell me, what makes you think you can do what they cannot? Keanu met her gaze, held it. I do not know that I can, ma'am, but I would like to try. Victoria looked at his toolbox again. How touching, a sentimental mechanic with a taped-up toolbox. She turned to her assistant. David, charter backup status. Every G700 and G650 in the Northeast is booked or in maintenance. Victoria held up her hand, turned back to Keanu. Fine, try, but let me be very clear, Mr. Reeves. Her voice dropped. If you somehow manage to fix what they could not, I will write you a check for $100,000. Right here, right now. A murmur rippled through the hangar. But when you fail, and you will fail, I want you to apologize to them for wasting everyone's time. Keanu felt every eye on him. Mom, I do not need $100,000. Victoria blinked. Excuse me, and I am not going to apologize to anyone for trying to help. If I fail, I fail. I have failed before. I will fail again. That is how learning works. He shifted his toolbox. What I will do is look at your aircraft with fresh eyes and honest hands. That is what I came here to do. That is what my friend asked me to do. Now, may I get started? We are wasting time. Victoria stared at him for 10 long seconds. Then her face hardened. Fine. Get started. Mr. Coleman, you will supervise. If he touches anything he is not supposed to, have him removed. Keanu moved straight to the cockpit. Dark instruments. Emergency power only. Derek handed him a tablet with 6 hours of diagnostic readouts. Every system within normal parameters. They are right, Keanu muttered. On paper, this plane should start. He set down the tablet and closed his eyes. Hands on the flight controls. He slowed his breathing. Let the world fade away. This was what Earl Mitchell had taught 2 boys in a cinder block garage in Baltimore. Not from any manual, from decades of hands that never lied. He listened. At first, nothing. Then a feeling. A pressure in his chest. Like the aircraft was holding its breath. Like something was blocking it. Like a singer with a hand around her throat, wanting to sing but unable to produce a single note. Keanu opened his eyes. Something Tommy once said echoed in his memory. When the computers say everything is fine, and the machine says it is not, trust the machine. Computers read data. Machines tell truth. I need to see the engine compartment. Derek frowned. They have checked the engines 6 times. Keanu. I need to see the engine compartment. Derek. 20 minutes later, Keanu was on his back beneath the left engine. Flashlight in his teeth. Hands tracing fuel lines with the delicacy of a surgeon. The concrete floor was cold against his back. Oil dripped somewhere in the darkness above him. 3 MIT engineers stood nearby watching with the particular expression of highly educated men who have been told that the janitor might know something they do not. Crawford stood 50 feet away, arms crossed, muttering to anyone who would listen that this was a circus. Victoria paced 30 feet away, phone pressed to her ear, her voice a sharp instrument cutting the air. Keanu blocked it all out. He moved methodically, checking connections, feeling for anomalies, running his fingers along every pipe and wire. The engine was pristine, perfectly maintained, every component exactly where it should be. But something was wrong. He could feel it in his fingertips. A wrongness so subtle it was almost nothing. Almost. The way a single flat note in an orchestra is almost nothing. Unless you are the conductor, unless you have ears that were trained in a cinder block garage in Baltimore by a man who believed machines had souls. And then he found it. A small valve about the size of his fist. The pressure relief valve, tucked behind the primary fuel delivery system in a space so tight you had to know exactly where to look. He had seen 1,000 of them in Tommy's workshop. He had helped Tommy replace them on military aircraft. He knew exactly how they were supposed to sit. The threading, the angle, the orientation of the flow arrow stamped into the metal casing. This one was backwards. He pulled himself out. Who did the last maintenance on this aircraft? An MIT engineer checked his tablet. Full service 3 weeks ago. Pressure relief valve was replaced. Show me the installation documentation. Because whoever installed it put it in backwards. The silence was deafening. Victoria repeated the word like it was poison. Backwards. The valve works in both orientations. It fits either way. But reversed, it restricts fuel flow by 15%. Not enough to trigger warnings. Not enough for diagnostics. But enough to prevent ignition pressure. Both engines. Same problem? Gerald Morton, the silver-haired head of maintenance, ran to verify. He came back gray-faced. E is right. Both valves reversed. Give me 20 minutes, Keanu said. Your aircraft will start. He worked in silence. Emma Lawson, a young technician who had been trying to raise the alarm all morning, appeared at his side. She handed him a wrench before he asked. The exact one he needed. You knew, did you not? Keanu said. I suspected. I tried to tell Mr. Morton. But nobody listens to someone without letters after their name. You have good instincts. Emma, do not let anyone convince you that experience and education are the same thing. They are not. At exactly 10:47, Keanu pressed the ignition button. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then a whine. Low at first, building. The left engine spun. Then the right. Instruments flickered to life. Warning indicators cleared one by one. Steady green lights across the board. The engines roared. He shut down and climbed out. Victoria walked toward him. The crowd parted. You did it. The aircraft did it, ma'am. I just helped it breathe. She pulled out a checkbook, wrote, tore, held it out, $100,000. As promised, Keanu looked at the check. He thought about Lily, about the tuition, about the grinding transmission in Tommy's truck. Then he thought about the way Victoria had looked at him when he walked in. The contempt, the certainty that he was nothing. He took the check. Victoria's eyes widened. Then Keanu ripped it in half, and in half again, and dropped the pieces at her feet. I did not come here for your money, Miss Caldwell. I came because a friend asked for help. That is what I do. I help people. And I do not need a check to prove my worth. I know my worth. I have always known it. He picked up his toolbox. Your aircraft is fixed. Your meeting will happen. I truly hope it works out. He turned to walk away. Then a voice from the crowd stopped everything. The young MIT engineer, standing near the diagnostic station, laptop still open, a browser tab visible behind the avionics data. He had typed the name from the visitor log into a search bar while Keanu worked. And now he was staring at his screen with his mouth open. Oh my God! The words were barely a whisper, but in the dead silence of that hangar, they carried like thunder. Every head turned toward him. The engineer looked up from his screen, then at Keanu, then back at his screen. His face was white. He turned the laptop around so the people near him could see. A Wikipedia page, filmography, awards. Photographs of a clean-shaven man on red carpets, at premieres, shaking hands with directors and presidents. That is Keanu Reeves. His voice cracked. That is the Keanu Reeves, the actor. He is worth $400 million. The hangar erupted. Phones came out. People gasped. Someone dropped a coffee cup and did not notice it shatter on the concrete floor. Derek closed his eyes and exhaled through his teeth. He had known this would happen. He had hoped it would not matter. Crawford's arms dropped to his sides. His mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water. Morton grabbed the edge of a workbench to steady himself. replaying every moment of the morning in his mind. The young MIT engineer was already scrolling through images, comparing the bearded man walking toward the exit with the clean-shaven face on the screen. He gave up acting 3 years ago to raise his best friend's daughter. He lives in Newark. He drives a truck. He is the guy who always gives away his salary to film crews. Murmurs became shouts. People were looking at each other in disbelief. The story was assembling itself in real time, and every person in that hangar was realizing they had been witnesses to something extraordinary. And Victoria Caldwell stood perfectly still among the torn pieces of her check, staring at the man in the faded hoodie who was already walking toward the door. The man she had called a nobody. The man she had mocked and belittled and dismissed. A man worth 40 times the check she had thrown at his face. A man who had quietly fixed what her army of experts could not, torn up the reward, and walked away without ever playing the one card that would have silenced her instantly. He had let her humiliate him. He had stood there and taken it. Not because he could not fight back, but because he wanted to see if she was capable of treating a stranger with dignity without knowing his name first. And she had failed. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. No words existed for what she was feeling. The ground beneath her feet felt like it was dissolving. 20 years of certainty, of believing she could read anyone in 3 seconds, of trusting her own judgment above all else, crumbling into dust around the torn paper at her shoes. Keanu did not stop, did not turn around, did not acknowledge the murmur spreading through the hangar like wildfire. He just kept walking toward his dead best friend's truck. Toolbox in hand, the morning sun on his face. Emma Lawson caught up with him in the parking lot. Slightly out of breath, cheeks flushed, still processing what had just happened inside. Mr. Reeves. Keanu! Wait, he turned. I just wanted to say what you did in there. I have never seen anything like it. Not the fixing, not even the check. The way you walked in and out of that hangar without ever once using your name as a weapon. You could have ended her with a single sentence. You could have said, "Do you know who I am?" and watched her crumble. But you did not. That is not who I am, Emma. I know. That is what makes it incredible. She glanced back at the hangar, where the chaos of recognition was still unfolding. Can I tell you something? I have been working here for 6 months. 6 months of being ignored, talked over, dismissed. I knew something was wrong with that maintenance work. I could feel it the way you feel a wrong note in a song. But no one would listen because I do not have a fancy degree. Because I am young. Because I am just a technician. She looked back at Keanu. And then you walked in there with your taped-up toolbox and your old jacket, and you actually saw me. You listened to me. Do you know how rare that is? In this industry? In this world? You knew the answer before I got here, Emma? You just needed someone to hear you say it. But nobody would. That is the part that breaks my heart. I was right. I was right from the beginning. And if you had not come, that plane would still be sitting dead, and everyone would still be ignoring me, and Victoria Caldwell would have missed her meeting, and nobody would ever know that the junior technician with 6 months of experience had the answer the whole time. Then make them listen from now on. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for someone to hand you a microphone. You have got good instincts. Trust them. Fight for them. The world needs people who can feel when something is wrong, not just people who can read when a screen says it is right. Emma nodded slowly. Can I ask you something else? Why did you not tell her who you were? $100,000. That is nothing to you. But the principle. You could have told her you were Keanu Reeves, and she would have treated you completely differently. And that is exactly the problem. Keanu opened the truck door. A person's worth is not their net worth, Emma. If she could not see that before she knew my name, then she needs to learn it. Not from my fame, from her own conscience. If I had told her who I was, she would have apologized to the celebrity. She would have been embarrassed about offending someone important. But she would not have learned anything. She would not have been forced to confront why she treated a stranger like dirt. He climbed into the driver's seat. This way, she has to sit with it. She has to ask herself whether she would treat the next person in a faded hoodie the same way. And maybe, just maybe, the answer changes. Emma stepped back as he started the engine. The transmission made that grinding sound. She winced. Do you think she will change? Keanu smiled, but there was sadness in it. I do not know. But I had to give her the chance. That is all any of us can do. Give people the chance to be better than their worst moment. He pulled out of the parking space. In his rearview mirror, he watched Emma wave once, then turn and walk back toward the hangar with her shoulders straighter than before. He checked the clock. 11:23. If he pushed it, he could still take Lily to the park. He had promised her. And Keanu Reeves did not break promises. Not ever. His phone buzzed halfway down the Garden State Parkway. Unknown number. This is Keanu. Mr. Reeves. Victoria Caldwell's voice. But not the voice from the hangar. This voice was stripped of everything. No authority. No contempt. Just a woman drowning. Do not hang up. Please. I am begging you? Do not hang up. Keanu said nothing. He waited. I know who you are. Her voice shattered on the last word. I looked it up after you left, and I cannot breathe, Mr. Reeves. I cannot breathe because I just treated one of the most generous human beings on this planet like he was garbage. I threw a check at a man who has donated more money to charity than I have earned in a decade. I mocked a man who gave up his career to raise his dead best friend's daughter. The last part hit Keanu like a wall. How do you know about Lily? Derek told me. After you left, he told me everything. About Tommy, about Grace, about the promise, about the notes in her lunchbox. Victoria's voice dissolved into sobbing. You are raising a dead soldier's orphaned daughter in a small house in Newark when you could be living in a mansion in Beverly Hills. And I stood in front of you and called you a nobody. Silence. I want to understand, Victoria whispered. Why you did what you did. Why you did not tell me who you were. Why you tore up that check. Any of it. I have been running scenarios in my head, trying to figure out your angle, what you were playing for, and I cannot find one. It does not make sense. Everyone has an angle. Everyone wants something. Maybe you have spent so long surrounded by people who want something from you that you have forgotten what it looks like when someone does not. That is what I am afraid of. A long pause. I built my entire empire on reading people. On knowing what they want before they ask. On being the smartest person in the room. And today a man stood in front of me for 2 hours, and I did not see him. I looked at his clothes and his truck and his toolbox, and I decided I knew everything I needed to know. I was so certain. And I was completely, devastatingly wrong. Her voice dropped. How many other people have I done that to? How many Gerald Mortons? How many Emma Lawsons? How many people walked into my life with something real to offer, and I dismissed them before they opened their mouths because they did not look the way I expected? That is a question only you can answer. I know, and the answer terrifies me. Another silence. Then Victoria spoke again. I want you to come to London with me. You and Lily. I want to talk, really talk. Not about engines or money or any of that. About how a man who could at anything in the world chooses to have almost nothing and seems richer than everyone I know. I have a daughter, Miss Caldwell. I promised her the park today. Bring her, please. Keanu pulled into his driveway. If I come, I drive myself to the airport. Of course. And nobody treats me any differently than they did this morning. I am not a celebrity on that plane. I am a father. That is all. That is all you need to be. Lily's eyes went wide when he told her. London, like Big Ben and the red buses and the fuzzy hats. That is the one. Oh my gosh, Daddy, can we? Keanu smiled. We need to talk first. This lady, Victoria, she was not nice to me today. She judged me before she knew me. Lily frowned. That is mean. It is, but she is starting to see things differently. Lily thought about it. Really thought. So she was mean, but now she is sorry. That is right. Then we should help her, Daddy. That is what you always say. When someone wants to be better, you help them get better, even when they do not deserve it. They arrived at Teterboro at 1:47. Victoria stood at the top of the aircraft stairs. She had changed. Simple jeans, cashmere sweater, hair down. She looked almost human. When she saw Keanu and Lily walking across the tarmac, she visibly flinched. The weight of what she had done that morning was written across her face. You came. I said I would. Victoria's eyes dropped to Lily. And you must be the famous daughter. Lily looked up at her. Are you the mean lady who said sorry? Keanu closed his eyes. Lily, but Victoria laughed. A real laugh. She knelt down. Yes, I suppose I am. Daddy says you judged him before you knew him. My teacher says we should never judge people by how they look. Your teacher is right. Are you going to make that mistake again? I am going to try very hard not to. Lily considered this. Then she nodded. Okay, I forgive you. Daddy says forgiveness is free, but trust has to be earned. On the plane, with Lily settled in the bedroom, Victoria sat across from Keanu. The mask was gone. Underneath was just a woman, terrified and ashamed. I need you to understand something, she said. What I did today was not about you. Not really? Then what was it about? I grew up poor. My father was a coal miner in West Virginia. Robert Caldwell. Worked 14 hours a day, 400 feet underground. My mother, Margaret, cleaned office buildings at night. Everything I have, I built. Every dollar, every piece of power. I fought for all of it against people who looked at me the way I looked at you this morning. So you became what you hated. Victoria flinched. Wes! She paused. And it gets worse. She told him about her father's death. The hospital calling 3 times during a meeting. Her assistant saying it was urgent. Victoria saying 5 more minutes. Then 5 more. Then 5 more. By the time she called back, Robert Caldwell was gone. The last thing her father heard was voicemail. That is why I push. That is why I cannot slow down. Because if I stop, I have to face what I have lost, who I have become. So you keep building walls. Yes, higher every year, thicker every year, until I could not see over them anymore. Until I forgot there was anything on the other side worth seeing. Keanu was quiet for a moment. My grandmother used to say there are 2 kinds of people, wall builders and bridge builders. The wall builders think they are safe, but they end up trapped inside their own fortress, alone. The bridge builders are scared too. But they build anyway. Because the only way through fear is connection. Victoria finished. Something flickered in her eyes. My father used to say something similar. He used to say, the deeper you go underground, the more you need the man beside you. Down in the dark, nobody cares about your title or your bank account. All that matters is whether you will hold the beam when the ceiling starts to crack. Sounds like a wise man. Ah, he was the wisest man I ever knew, and I was too busy becoming important to realize it until he was gone. Keanu told her about Tommy. About meeting him in Mrs. Henderson's 2nd grade class. Both of them 7 years old, both of them missing fathers, both of them angry in ways they did not understand. About Earl Mitchell's garage, where they learned that broken things could be made whole again if you were patient enough and honest enough to find the problem. About Tommy's laugh, the kind that started in his belly and filled every room he entered and made strangers smile without knowing why. He told her about Grace, about how Tommy had called him the night they met, breathless, talking so fast the words blurred together. Brother, I met someone. She is terrifying and beautiful, and she looked at me like she could see every broken thing inside me and decided to love me anyway. About the wedding. About Lily's birth. About the phone call at 3 in the morning. She has my chin and her mother's eyes, and I have never been so terrified in my entire life. Then, He told her about the end, about the ambush outside Kabul, about the funeral with full military honors, the folded flag, the 21-gun salute that made Lily scream and cover her ears, about Grace's diagnosis, about the 4 months of watching a woman who had been fearless her entire life slowly disappear into a bed that seemed to grow larger every day as she grew smaller. On the last night, she could barely speak, Keanu said. His voice had gone quiet, almost inaudible over the hum of the engines. But she grabbed my hand with everything she had left and she said, "You are the only person in this world I trust with her." And I looked into her eyes, and I saw Tommy in them. I saw the same courage, the same refusal to let fear win. And I promised. Victoria wiped her eyes. And you kept that promise. Every day, every note in her lunchbox, every bedtime story, every nightmare at 2 in the morning when she calls out for a mother who cannot answer. Keanu looked at his hands. I could have kept making movies, could have hired the best nannies money could buy. But Tommy did not throw himself on a bomb so his daughter could be raised by strangers. He did it so she could live, and living means being loved by someone who is there, present, every single day. Not on a film set, not at an awards ceremony. There, in the kitchen, making sandwiches. That is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. It is just love, Victoria. The kind that does not need a reason. The plane descended into London. Lily appeared from the bedroom, hair wild from sleep. Daddy, is Victoria still sad? I think she is working on it, baby. Then we should help her carry the heavy thing until she is strong enough to carry it alone. Victoria's breath caught. Who taught her to talk like that? She taught herself. I just try to keep up. At the glass tower, Victoria froze in the car. Hands shaking. I cannot do this. Keanu took her hand. You have prepared for 3 years. Be curious instead of controlling. Listen instead of talk. Lily leaned across. You can do it, Victoria. I believe in you. Something shifted in Victoria's eyes. The panic retreated. Not gone, but pushed back. Contained. She looked at the 8-year-old girl, at the earnest face, the complete absence of doubt, and something inside her steadied. Thank you, Lily. Daddy says believing is the first step. The second step is trying. The third step is not giving up. Victoria walked into the building. Keanu watched her go. Her heels clicked against marble. Her shoulders were back. Her chin was up. But he could see her hands shaking. He found the waiting area on the 43rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking London. Lily pressed her nose against the glass. Daddy, I can see everything from up here. Is that Big Ben? That is Big Ben, baby. Does it actually go bong? Every hour. I want to hear it. Can we stay until it bongs? They settled onto a leather couch. Lily pulled out the tablet Victoria had given her on the plane and started a movie. Keanu tried to relax, but his mind kept drifting to the conference room somewhere on this floor. Victoria was in there right now, fighting for everything she had built. And she was fighting differently than she had ever fought before. Not with walls. With bridges. An hour passed. Lily looked up from her screen. Daddy?
Yeah, baby.
Are you happy? Like really happy? Not just happy when I am around, but happy inside, even when nobody is watching. The question caught him off guard. Why are you asking? Because sometimes you look sad when you think I am not looking, like you are remembering something heavy. Keanu felt his heart crack. Come here. Lily climbed into his lap. Baby girl, nobody is happy all the time. Not me, not you, not anybody. Happiness is not something you have. It is something you feel. And feelings come and go like weather. But you still get sad sometimes. And that is okay. Being sad does not mean something is wrong. It just means you are human. He held her close. But here is what matters. Even when I am sad, I am grateful. Grateful for you. For the life we have. For every day I get to keep the promise I made to your mom and dad. Do you think they can see us? Right now. In London. I think they see everything. Baby. I think your dad is up there right now bragging to everyone about how his little girl flew across an ocean. Lily smiled. And Mom. Your mom is probably making sure the angels have enough blankets and reminding God to eat his vegetables. Lily giggled. Then she grew serious again. Daddy, do you think Victoria is going to be our friend? Like for real? I do not know, baby. Maybe. I think she needs friends. She seems lonely, like she has lots of people around her all the time, but none of them really know her. Lily paused. She is like Tanya at school, remember? Tanya was mean to everyone because she did not know how to ask for help. But when Mrs. Dawson's granddaughter showed her it was okay to be scared, Tanya became nice. You think Victoria just needs someone to show her it is okay to be scared? I think everybody needs that, Daddy. Keanu marveled at his daughter. Tommy's courage, Grace's wisdom, and something entirely, uniquely her own. When did you get so smart about people? I pay attention. You always say that is the most important thing. Paying attention and being kind. Another hour passed. Keanu bought Lily a sandwich from a small cafe near the elevators. They sat by the windows watching the city below. Then his phone buzzed. Victoria texted. They want to cut our price by 30%. My instinct is to destroy them. A pause. Ask why. Listen to their reasoning. Find the real concern. So do that. Another text, 20 minutes later. They are saying our AI patents are overvalued because the technology moves too fast. They want to renegotiate the entire framework. Is there any truth to what they are saying? Maybe. Some of the patents are 5 years old. Tech does move fast. Then acknowledge it. Show them you are not defensive. Find common ground. A longer pause. I just admitted that 3 of our patents might need reevaluation. The lead negotiator, James Thornton, looked at me like I had grown a second head. Then he smiled and said it was refreshing to work with someone who did not treat every conversation like a war. Sounds like progress. It feels like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. You have a parachute. It is called honesty. 30 minutes later. Keanu. Something incredible just happened. Thornton opened up about their real concerns. They are not trying to steal from us. They are terrified the merger will fail and their shareholders will crucify them. They are as scared as I am. Now you are speaking the same language. Why are building solutions together instead of fighting over positions? This has never happened to me before. It happened today. That is all that matters. One final text. This is the hardest thing I have ever done. Harder than building my company. Harder than any deal I have ever closed. The best things usually are. You keep saying that because it keeps being true. 4 hours later, Victoria emerged transformed. Not in her appearance, which was still polished and professional, but in something deeper. The tension that had defined her every movement was gone. Her shoulders were down. Her jaw was unclenched. Her eyes were wet, but they were alive in a way Keanu had not seen before. We did it. 4.2 billion. They accepted our valuation. You did it, Victoria.
Not we.
No. She shook her head. I could not have done this without you. Without what you taught me. Her voice was filled with something that sounded almost like wonder, like a person describing a color they had never seen before. But that is not the important part. What is the important part? They were scared, Keanu. The whole time, they were just scared. Scared the merger would fail. Scared their shareholders would crucify them. Scared they were making a mistake. She paused. They were building walls too, and when I stopped attacking and started asking questions, really asking, really listening, the walls came down on both sides. By the end, it did not feel like a negotiation. It felt like 2 groups of scared people finally admitting they were scared and deciding to be scared together. Lily tugged Victoria's sleeve. Does that mean you won? Victoria looked down at her. I think we all won, Lily. That is the best kind of winning. See, Daddy, I told you she could do it. Yes, you did, baby girl. Victoria knelt down and squeezed Lily's hand. Thank you for believing in me, Lily. That meant more than you know. Believing is easy. You are the one who had to be brave. They rode the London Eye, Lily between them. The city spread below like a living map. At the top, Lily pressed against the glass. Daddy, look, everything looks like toys from up here. Victoria stood beside Keanu, close but not quite touching. Here, I feel small. And, for the first time in my life, that does not scare me. She looked at the city below. I spent 30 years trying to be the biggest thing in every room. Turns out all that biness was just me trying to fill a hole that gets bigger the more you throw into it. My father was a small man, she continued, 5'7", 150 pounds. Spent his life underground. But he was the biggest person I ever knew. Lily tugged her sleeve. I think your daddy sounds nice. He was the nicest man in the world. Then he would be proud of you today. Daddy says people in heaven can see everything we do. Victoria knelt and hugged the child, a billionaire and an 8-year-old, suspended above London, held together by something no amount of money could buy. 3 months later, Victoria Caldwell stood in the hangar at Teterboro. She had asked them all to come. Gerald Morton, William Crawford, the MIT engineers, Emma Lawson, every person who had witnessed her worst self. She wore no designer suit, no jewelry, just a simple navy blouse, hair loose, no armor. 3 months ago, I stood in this hangar and treated you like you were less than human. I mocked your expertise. I threatened your careers. I fired people who did not deserve to be fired. And I did it because I was terrified. Terrified of being the scared little girl from West Virginia who never felt good enough. She paused. None of that excuses what I did. She turned to Morton. Mr. Morton, you gave this company 30 years, and I threw that away in a moment of cruelty. I am asking you to come back as Vice President of Technical Operations, because this company needs your wisdom. Morton was silent for a long time. Every person in that semicircle held their breath. Then he spoke, and his voice carried the weight of 3 decades of waking up before dawn, checking every bolt, every wire, every valve, because he knew people's lives depended on it. When you fired me that day, in front of everyone, it felt like none of it mattered. Like 30 years were nothing. Like I was nothing. He paused. My wife told me to forget about you. My kids told me to sue. My friends told me to move on. His voice cracked, but I could not, because I kept thinking about that man. The one with the taped-up toolbox. The one who turned out to be someone famous, but never said a word about it. And I kept thinking, if a man like that can walk away from $100,000 because he believed in something bigger than money, then maybe I can find it in myself to believe in something bigger than anger. He walked forward, extended his hand, then pulled her into a hug, the kind that bridges build. Crawford stepped forward next. His eyes were red. We all have bad days, Ms. Caldwell. The difference is whether we learn from them. I have had my share of bad days. I have said things in pressure situations that I wish I could take back. What matters is that you are standing here. He shook her hand firmly. Welcome back to the human race. The MIT engineer, the young one Victoria had nearly broken that morning, walked up last among the engineers. He was shaking. You terrified me that day, he said quietly. I went home and told my girlfriend I was quitting aviation, that I was not cut out for it, that people like me did not belong in rooms with people like you. He paused. But then I heard what Keanu Reeves said to Emma. That experience and education are not the same thing. That instincts matter, and I realized that you did not have the power to decide whether I belonged. Only I had that power. Victoria nodded. You are right, and I am sorry I ever made you feel otherwise. She turned to Emma Lawson. You were right from the beginning. Effective immediately, you are Director of European Maintenance Operations. Victoria looked at everyone. And I am establishing the dignity protocol across every division. Every voice matters. Every observation gets heard. Every person, from the newest technician to the CEO, is treated with respect. because a man with a taped-up toolbox taught me that expertise has nothing to do with titles. It has everything to do with showing up, paying attention, and having the courage to speak when no one wants to listen. She looked at each person in that semicircle. I cannot undo what I did. I can only promise to be different. And I know trust has to be earned. So I am asking for the chance to earn it, one day at a time. Keanu watched from the hangar door, Lily beside him holding his hand. See, Daddy, she whispered. I told you. When someone wants to be better, you help them get better. 6 months later, Victoria drove herself to Newark in a rental car. No driver, no entourage. She carried a casserole dish in one hand and a wrapped present in the other. She had spent 40 minutes in the grocery store choosing ingredients. A woman who had personal chefs on 3 continents stood in aisle 7 of a New Jersey supermarket reading the back of a pasta box with the concentration of someone disarming a bomb. Lily met her at the door. Aunt Victoria! She launched herself with the force of a small hurricane. Careful, careful. I am carrying food. Is it the mac and cheese? The fancy one with the 4 cheeses. 5 cheeses this time. I am learning. You are getting better at everything. Thank you, sweetheart. That means more than you know. They ate dinner together. Keanu, Lily, Victoria, Derek, Mrs. Dawson, and Emma Lawson, who had flown in from London for the weekend. The table was too small for all of them. They crowded together, elbows bumping, dishes being passed over heads, laughter filling every corner of the small house. Victoria's mac and cheese was slightly burned on the edges. Derek ate 3 servings and declared it the finest thing he had ever tasted. Mrs. Dawson quietly showed Victoria how to keep the cheese from separating next time. Emma told stories about her new team in London, about the young technicians who now spoke up in meetings because they knew their voices mattered. Keanu sat at the head of the table that Tommy had built from reclaimed wood the summer before his last deployment, watching these people who had been strangers less than a year ago become something he did not have a word for. Not quite friends. Not quite family. Something in between. Something new. Something that only existed because a valve was installed backwards and a man with a taped-up toolbox answered the phone. After dinner, while the adults talked on the porch, and the dishes soaked in the sink, Lily sat at the kitchen table with crayons and a large sheet of white paper. She drew carefully, with the seriousness of an artist working on her masterpiece. 5 stick figures, a tall one with long dark hair, a small one with brown waves and a purple dress. 2 figures floating in the sky among stars, holding hands, smiling. And a 5th figure, a woman with yellow hair, standing beside the tall figure and the small one. Not apart, not alone, together. At the bottom, in wobbly handwriting that leaned slightly to the right the way all 8-year-old handwriting does. Family is not blood. Family is love. She brought it to the porch, held it up with both small hands like a treasure she had unearthed. Keanu saw it first. His throat tightened. Victoria saw it next. She pressed her hand to her mouth, and the tears came, quiet and healing, the kind that wash rather than wound. That is Tommy and Grace. Lily pointed to the sky. They are watching us. And that is you and Daddy and me. We are all together. Later that night, Keanu stood before 2 photographs on the shelf. Tommy in his dress blues laughing. Grace holding baby Lily, exhaustion and joy fighting for control of her face. I kept my promise, he said softly. She is happy. She is safe. She is loved. And she is teaching me things you would not believe. 1 week later, Victoria stood in a cemetery in rural West Virginia for the first time in 20 years. She had driven herself 6 hours from New York through mountains that grew greener and older the further she went from the highway, past towns where coal dust still settled on windowsills, past churches with parking lots bigger than their sanctuaries, past the kind of poverty that does not make the news, because it has been there so long it has become invisible. The cemetery sat on a hill overlooking the valley where she had grown up. She could see the remains of the mine entrance from here. Boarded up now. A chain-link fence around the perimeter. A sign that read, "Danger, keep out," in letters faded by rain and indifference. The headstone was simple. Robert Andrew Caldwell, beloved husband and father. The grass around it was overgrown, the stone weathered by 2 decades of neglect. Victoria knelt and placed wildflowers against the base. The same wildflowers her father used to pick for her mother on Sunday mornings. Queen Anne's lace and black-eyed Susans and purple clover, gathered from the roadside because store-bought flowers were for rich people and Robert Caldwell was not rich in any way the world could measure. "Hi, Daddy?" Barely a whisper. "I know it has been too long. I know I should have come sooner. I know I should have called back that day." The tears fell freely. No audience, no cameras, no performance. Just a daughter speaking to a father who could no longer hear her. The wind moved through the cemetery grass, and for a moment it sounded almost like breathing. She pulled out a creased photograph from her wallet. A little girl sitting on a coal miner's shoulders, both laughing, a West Virginia sunset blazing behind them. She had carried it since the day he died. Every wallet, every purse, every country. This photograph had been to board rooms in Tokyo and conference halls in London and private jets over the Atlantic, pressed against her hip like a secret prayer. "I remember this day, Daddy. It was a Sunday after church. You put me on your shoulders, and we walked all the way home because Mama took the car to get groceries. And I asked you why the sky turned colors at night, and you said, because even the sky needs to rest, baby girl. Even the sky needs to let go of the day and trust that tomorrow will come." Her voice shattered into pieces. She pressed the photograph against the cold stone. "I forgot how to trust that tomorrow would come. I forgot how to rest. I forgot how to let go. For 20 years I ran, Daddy. I ran so fast and so far that I forgot what I was running from. But I know now. I was running from this. From standing here and facing the fact that I was not there when you needed me most." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Took a breath. Found her voice again. "But I am learning, Daddy. A man who keeps promises to the dead and a little girl who believes in second chances are teaching me. And I think you sent them. I think you sent them because you knew I could not find my way back alone." She reached into her bag and placed a document beside the flowers. The charter for the Robert Caldwell Foundation. $100 million of her personal wealth dedicated to education and health care for children in Appalachian mining communities. Schools for towns that had lost theirs. Clinics for families who drove 90 minutes to see a doctor. Scholarships for kids who were smart enough but poor enough that smart did not matter. "I cannot bring you back, but I can make sure other daughters do not lose their fathers the way I lost you. I can make sure the children in these mountains get chances you never had. This is for you, Daddy. Everything I build from now on is for you." She stayed until sunset painted the hills in gold and amber. The same gold and amber from the photograph. The same sunset, as if the sky remembered too. Then she stood, wiped her eyes, and walked to her car. Not the woman who had thrown a check at a stranger. Not the woman who confused wealth with worth. But someone new. Someone still being built. Someone finally brave enough to tear down her own walls and let the light in. On a Tuesday morning in October, Keanu Reeves woke at 5:30, same as always. Turkey sandwich, no crust, apple slices, juice box, and a note. He wrote 5 words. "We are braver together. Love, Daddy." A note number 1124. Lily appeared in the doorway. Purple pajamas, wild hair, Tommy's chin, Grace's eyes, and something entirely, beautifully, impossibly her own. "Morning, Daddy. Morning, baby girl. Is today a good day?" "Yeah, baby. Today is a good day. Then let us make it a great one." She found the note. Read it carefully, looked up and smiled. A smile that contained every sunrise, every prayer, every reason he had ever needed to keep going. "We are braver together," she repeated. "I like that one, Daddy. Me too, baby girl. Me too. She ate her sandwich in 3 bites, kissed his cheek, grabbed her backpack, and ran for the school bus that had just rumbled to a stop at the corner. Keanu watched her go. Watched her climb the steps and wave from the window, her face bright as a lantern against the morning. He stood in the doorway for a long time after the bus disappeared. The kitchen was quiet, coffee cooling on the counter, Tommy's truck in the driveway, rust and all, the toolbox by the garage door, the photographs on the shelf, everything in its place, everything exactly as it should be. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Board meeting ran late. Flying to Newark tonight. Dinner tomorrow? He typed back. Always. Lily is making a welcome sign. Tell her I cannot wait. She knows. She has been talking about it all week. A pause. Then, Keanu. Thank you. For what? For that morning at the hangar. For not telling me who you were. For making me earn the lesson instead of handing it to me. I think about it every day. Every time I walk into a room and start making assumptions about someone, I hear that grinding transmission in my head, and I remember the man who drove a dead soldier's truck to a hangar full of strangers and fixed what nobody else could fix and walked away without ever saying his name. Keanu stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he typed, Tommy would have done the same thing. I just try to be the man he thought I was. You are that man, Keanu. You have always been that man. He put down his phone and looked out the window. Outside, the sun rose over Newark. Another day beginning. Another chance to show up. Another opportunity to build bridges instead of walls. Keanu Reeves had never sought fame for its own sake. He had just shown up every day and done the work. Fixed what was broken. Loved what was beautiful. Believed in what was possible. Kept promises to people who could no longer hold him to them, and to one small girl who held him to everything. And in the end, that was enough. That was everything. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory, soft as a hymn, steady as a heartbeat. There are 2 kinds of people in this world, Keanu. Wall builders and bridge builders. The wall builders think they are safe, but they end up trapped inside their own fortress, alone. The bridge builders are scared too, but they build anyway, because they know the only way through fear is connection. Earl Mitchell's toolbox sat by the garage door, held together with duct tape and prayers and 40 years of honest work. Tommy's truck sat in the driveway, rust and all. And somewhere in West Virginia, wildflowers bloomed on a coal miner's grave. And somewhere over the Atlantic, a young woman named Emma Lawson led a team of engineers who listened to every voice in the room. And somewhere in a glass tower in Silicon Valley, a billionaire sat in a meeting and chose curiosity over control, chose listening over lecturing, chose connection over walls. And in a small kitchen in Newark, a man with long dark hair and kind brown eyes packed a lunchbox for a little girl who was not his by blood, but was his by everything that mattered. And he wrote her a note, because that was the promise. That was always the promise. To show up, to love without condition, to build bridges even when the river was wide and the current was strong and the other shore seemed impossibly far away. To be brave. Together. Thank you for following this story! Let us know in the comments below if this story has moved you and you would like to stand with us in bringing more voices of truth and hope to light. Please consider supporting our work. Even the smallest gift helps us continue creating and sharing these powerful stories. You can find the donate link in the description. And of course, do not forget to subscribe so you will not miss the next chapter we are preparing for you.